General People's Congress commemorates its 39th anniversary amid war and shattered political scene. Government forces thwart Houthi rebels' attack in Taiz and cause losses among them. United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Hodeidah to discuss the humanitarian situation. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdelbey. The General People's Congress, the symbol of political moderation, is commemorating its 39th anniversary, since it was founded back in 24 August 1982 by its iconic leader, President Ali Abdullah Saleh, had established stability and prosperity in a country which has always been a subject of political instability. The following report looks at the most important stages in this great party.
The General People's Congress, the outcome of Yemeni intellectual minds who believed in peace and moderation. In the second half of the 20th century, the ideologies of socialism, capitalism and political Islam fermented in the Arab region, and the forces of the left or extreme right were present in the general scene of a number of countries, including Yemen, which since September and October Revolution were reflected in the state of political instability in both parts of the country, north and south. In the face of this dangerous situation, there was an urgent need to implement a comprehensive national project for Yemenis, stemming from the nature of Yemeni society and touching the concerns and aspirations of its people. The fifth president of the Yemen Arab Republic, Ali Abdullah Saleh, was the only one who issued Republican Resolution number 5, 1980, regarding the drafting of the National Charter. All political elites from various parties and intellectual stripes participated in the drafting of the National Charter. This led to the establishment of the General People's Congress on the 24th of August 1982. And since the establishment of the conference, it had a role in ending the state of instability in the north of the country since the revolution of September 26, 1962. The Socialist Party in the south saw in the People's Congress a bet to end the state of division in one nation, and the desired dream was achieved by the establishment of the Republic of Yemen on May 22, 1990. This marked the start of political pluralism and consolidation of the democratic approach. After the union, the popularity of the General Conference Party expanded and spread in the south of the country, enabling it to win the vast majority of parliament seats during the three electoral terms in 1993, 1997 and 2003, as well as the direct presidential elections in 1999 and 2006. And the local council elections in 2001 and 2006. In front of the overwhelming popularity of the General People's Congress, the rest of the leftist and extreme right-wing parties have tried to drop it from power by various means, including riding a wave of the so-called Arab Spring revolutions, calling for the downfall of the regime. Partners in the chaos of the squares, the Houthi militia and the Muslim Brotherhood were the most prominent beneficiaries of the chaos of the year 2001. The militia tightened its grip on the capital Sana'a and most of the northern governorates, while the Muslim Brotherhood proclaiming established its presence in the oil-rich governorates in the north and south. The years of war have proven that the current conflict in Yemen has become based on projects that recall the past and are no longer progressive conflicts through electoral programs and compete to win the citizens' favor and obtain its electoral vote. The General People's Congress, or what is known locally as Al-Mu'tamar Al-Shabi Al-Aam, with its moderate political approach, has proven to be the safety gate for Yemen, the region, and the entire world.
Joint forces in Hodeidah stopped Houthi fire targeting areas to the west of the city. Joint forces tracked the fire and responded to its sources with etiquette weapons. Meanwhile, in Al-Durayhimi, Houthi militia shelled the residential areas with mortar artillery. According to some sources, the militia targeted Al-Jabayliyah and Al-Fazza areas south of Al-Hodeidah. In Al-Tuhaita, Houthi militia targeted civilians with artillery fire, causing a state of fear and panic among them. The coalition air raids destroyed a number of military equipment for Houthi rebels in Al-Jawf and Ma'rib. A source said that the raids targeted engines for the rebels in positions between Al-Jawf and Ma'rib, destroying a number of military equipment. Military reinforcements for the militia were also targeted in Sirwa. According to some sources, the coalition raids caused Houthi militia heavy losses. Houthi militia launched a wide-scale attack in Taiz. According to military source, the government forces thwarted the attack in Maqbana, to the west of the city, causing huge losses of lives and equipment among the rebels. Houthi militia besieged the village of Al-Zaidi in Damar. Local sources confirmed that the militia imposed a siege on the entire village and sophisticated local citizens. It was reported that the director of security for Al-Hadda area sent a military campaign to arrest social figures from Al-Zaidi family while storming the houses of the village, which caused terror and panic among the innocent civilians. Houthi militia executed a sheep herder in the west of Taiz. Sources said that the militia kidnapped the herder and killed him, then kept his body. The militia are blackmailing his family for more money to hand over his body, asking them to drop the charges of abduction and killing. The Health Office and Ghita Al-Rahma Foundation in Hais have launched a free medical camp to treat blindness and eye diseases. Over the course of a week, the camp will perform 200 surgeries for poor families and displaced in order to alleviate the suffering of those who cannot afford the costs of treatment. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs visited Hais and met with local authority officials. The meeting discussed the situation in the city and sought ways to ease the suffering of people in many issues, such as water, health, education, and food. OCHA stressed they will first of all evaluate the humanitarian situation. The team visited the rural hospital and checked the situation of the patients and their medical needs. The team moved also to some displacement locations and met with some people who had to leave their houses because of the Houthi rebels' atrocities.
Al-Hais is subject to violation. Aid and humanitarian assistance are missed very much. Most organizations do not come to Al-Hais, but today we coordinated with the local authorities and the partners. We set priorities and the sectors that will be handled from the part of partners such as the sectors of health, education, water and social sector that represents the most important sector to the area, especially after the people lost their livelihoods. All are suffering, the displaced and the residents. We hope that the partners focus on the city of Al-Hais because it needs intervention, projects and infrastructure that will help in easing the suffering from the city.
The continuing war in Yemen has compounded the crisis of displacement in the country that suffers already from a number of difficulties. 20 million people require humanitarian assistance. More than 4 million Yemeni people remain are displaced, and many others need food due to the deplorable economic situation. The following report has more details on this story.
In the vast arid desert between sand dunes with a temperature exceeding 40 degrees Celsius, more than 800 resident families and about 300 displaced families, most of them women and children, live in a very difficult humanitarian conditions. According to camps management for the displaced in Hodeidah, more than 4,000 families, including 1,200 displaced families, face a humanitarian situation that is getting worse in light of the escalation of fighting between government forces and the Houthi rebels on the one hand, and the rising temperatures in the midst of a complete absence of international and humanitarian organizations on the other hand. Inside huts, tree branches, and tents, ruined by high temperatures, winds, and rains. The house of Muhammad al Faidi, 72 years old, who has been displaced with his family from the city of Harad for more than 6 years, is lying on his traditional bed in one of the corners of the hut, which has not protected him from the high temperature for 3 years, causing him a disease made him lose his hearing. And near the hut of Muhammad al Faidi lives 65 years old Fatima Ahmed, who was displaced with her 5 daughters from Abs district as a result of the ongoing conflict between government forces and the Houthi rebels. The International Organization for Migration announced the displacement of about 6,121 families, which is equivalent to 36,726 individuals, since the beginning of this year as a result of the current war. And during June 2021, the displacement of 169 families was monitored, the organization added. Earlier, the Yemeni government held the Houthi rebels fully responsible for obstructing and thwarting efforts to achieve peace and stop the war, stressing at the same time that its hand will remain outstretched for peace. In a related context, Mark Lowcock warned from lack of funding and its impact on the provision of services to those in need, and noted that UNICEF in August will reduce fuel subsidies for water and sanitation systems serving 3.4 million people. Also, the World Health Organization announced the provision of the security limit of the package of services that provides health care for 6 million people. More than $200 million in pledges made at the March event have yet to be dispersed, including from some of Yemen's largest donors, Lowcock added. The suffering of the displaced Yemenis has worsened as a result of the nearly 7 years war, amid the deplorable economic situations that serves no good.
Coming next. Eritrean Marine Forces detain Yemeni fishermen in the Red Sea.
مقبوس رسالتي على منطقة الروضة استهدف الأطفال الأبرياء اللي يلعبوا في الشارع بيدعي للسلام يقولوا للسلام يقتل أطفالنا يقتل أطفالنا الأبرياء.
أنا قلت افتجعت ولا أقول معي واحد صاروخ ثاني طلعت البيت حقنا عشان ألعب أنا وأصحابي والصاروخ انطرح.
Welcome back. The Eritrean Marine Forces detained 20 Yemeni fishermen near Hodeidah Island in the southern Red Sea. According to local authority sources, an Eritrean armed boat intercepted 3 fishing boats 4 miles from the Yemeni island, Hodeidah, arrested more than 20 fishermen and drove them towards the Eritrean coast. This comes a week after a Yemeni fisherman was killed and 2 others wounded when the Eritrean Marine Force fired on their boat again near Hodeidah Island. The Houthi rebels are sectarian in its essence. They give themselves privilege over other people. This report sheds light on the racist nature of the Houthi movement.
Whoever does not owe obedience to the Houthis is corrupt and should be purged from state institutions. This is the standard for the leader of the Houthi militia who directed the purification of state agencies, from whom he called corrupt. In a particular translation of these directives, the militia continued to target members of the security services by demobilizing about 150 members of the National Security Service and replacing them with others who received their training at the hands of experts from Hezbollah. The militia announced last Tuesday the dismissal of 904 officers from the police forces and security after accusing them of working abroad. If someone does not raise his hand to chant the ominous cry and attend the sectarian courses organized by the militia in state institutions, then he is an agent and a traitor in the eyes of the deadly militia. Local sources reported that the liquidation campaign will not stop at the point, and based on the meetings of the so-called Supreme Police Council in Sana'a, another committee was assigned. It is headed by the Houthi leaders working within the militia's interior to complete the inventory of the names of the remaining officers and individuals who are not loyal, to intake their dismissal from their jobs as part of plans and directions for the next stage. The same sources confirmed that the majority of officers who were recently targeted for no reason from their jobs are in the militia's areas of control and have suffered scourge and deprivation in their homes for years. While most of the elements that the militia intends to replace the official security officers were staying in Iran and Lebanon and returned to the country, during the chaos of 2011 they managed all the militia's security operations. The Iranian-backed militia seems to continue complete modernization of the security services in its areas of control, to make it a sword hanging over the necks of Yemenis and to tighten its security, political and cultural grip on society.
Being a public servant in Yemen is equal to hell. Many public servants owe to the private sector to own their livings to support their families. They dream of the return of these days when they did not bear that in mind, with their salaries paid on time. More is in this report.
Being a public servant in Yemen is equal to hell. The civil servants, since Houthis militia incursion and control of the capital Sana'a in 2014, are suffering more and more from the cut-off or disrupted salaries and Houthis' layoff policies. Many public servants opted to the private sector to earn their livings to support their families. They dream of the return of these days when they didn't bear that in mind, with their salaries paid on time. Now, after the Houthis' control, they are striving harder and harder to earn their day-to-day living. What they want now is to work anything, even the humble jobs they will accept to get the least of life. The public servants are now looking for the basic needs. Their families are bearing the brunt with them. The war in Yemen and the Houthi militia's practices obliged them to lead a harsh life that is void of all the joys of life. According to experts, more than half of Yemeni employees in the capital Sana'a and in other parts of the country that is still under the Houthi control have not been paid their salaries since 2016. Some experts say that this disruption of salaries is due to the relocation of the central bank from the main capital to Aden. Others say not. The relocation had nothing to do with the salary crisis. They blame the Houthis for this after the militias seized the monetary reserves for the state was nearly $5 billion. According to experts, the Houthi rebels took over the Yemeni oil customs returns that were booked in the central bank under supervision from the United Nations. The state lost all this money that could pay the employees their salaries. The difficult thing for these public servants is that they depend on the salary as a sole income. Now, with the salary cut off, they are forced to get through life with the most humble or even humiliating ways.
In Sana'a, where the school book press institutions received new textbooks modified by Houthi militia, teachers in the areas under the control of the Iranian-backed Houthi militia warned families that these books are stuffed with Houthi mindset curricula, which is full of racist ideas. Educational sources confirmed that the militia filled the basic education stages with ideas and beliefs imported from Tehran, which threatened to blow the minds of young students. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. General People's Congress commemorates its 39th anniversary amid war and shattered political scene. Government forces thwart Houthi rebels' attack in Taiz and causes losses among them. United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Hais to discuss the humanitarian situation. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.